Good day, everyone. It's Shay Seeking, and I'm here to just kind of throw some things out there. Nothing really specific. Well, somewhat, but not really. I was listening to a channel that I like to listen to called The Crow House. It's just one of those channels that's there to make you think. He doesn't try to push anything on anybody or whatever. So if you guys want to, I'm not saying that I agree with and lean on every single word that he says, but he puts forth some valid information, and I like to check his channel out here and there. So I was just listening to it just a minute ago when I was going into the shower, and that might be too much information, but anyway, I was listening to it, and this kind of struck me because I'm thinking the same thing. So I'm just wondering who else is kind of seeing it like this.
Or was this put there by a previous culture? Was it put there by the Tartarian culture? Why does the Pope still carry around a staff with a pineal gland on the end of it? Would he be doing this simply because the Vatican?
And you guys can stop and pause it here. There's a lot of symbolism here. A lot of stuff that they do is just repeated symbolism, and they just simply know about it, and then you don't, or they know about it as what it was in true history or a story, um, mainly his story, and then they simply give you a different perception of it, or they put it as folklore, folktale, or some kind of mythology or something in order for you to view it that way.
Hiding up the fact that they've calcified our pineal gland? Or is it simply the fact that they picked up the remnants of the old culture and they started promoting the wrong concepts about reality, but just using the same tools to do it? But you can see it's there. Why would the Pope be carrying around a staff with a pineal gland on the end of it if the pineal gland was not something that was absolutely integral to the human condition? And that's an important part to look at. It's an important thing to take note of with all of the ancient teachings regarding this spiritual connection that we once had, is that there is also a huge amount of focus put on human biology. Like I said, it isn't just consciousness, it's on the brain stem, it's on the pineal gland, it's on things that we have within our biology which we can activate in order to take consciousness to a new level, or at least take us back to the level that we're supposed to be at. You've got to ask, why is the pineal gland calcified? And this is what fluoride does, folks. It's one of the main things fluoride does. And you might say, well, we live in a country where there is no fluoride in the water. But even if there is no fluoride in your water, folks, I guarantee it's in the salt. It's in the canned food. It's in other stuff. It's in everything else. They're making sure they're getting it into you so that this pineal gland is closed. But the fact that there is a biological connection to the levels of spirituality we could actually be reaching is a very profound thing, and it's a very encouraging thing because it shows that it isn't really that difficult for us to regain the connection that we once had. As I've said to you before, it may be as simple as changing our diet and getting our biology back in order to bring ourselves back online. What we're likely.
Okay, so the reason why I listen to him, they say it's kind of like bad to listen to people that are like minded, but I think in this case, no. It goes against everything that is common sense. Okay? So when it comes to looking at things this way, that is very different. There's no dogma, there's no science, there's no anything attached, because in science, when it comes to biology and the brain, even they don't even know the full extent of the powers and the uses of the brain. And even if they don't, they have given you a watered down version to regurgitate to you and anyone else that is in their education systems, in order to keep you in a certain mindset. Okay, so let's keep going. So I didn't go that far. I kind of let you guys, I just kind of cut it off when he just stopped talking about the consciousness. But I stopped at the point when he said about the pineal gland. And he said, why would the Pope still be carrying this around? And that made me stop it at that time mark so I can remember when I came back down to speak on the matter. So we just listened a little bit more. So I wanted to go into this, okay? And you guys are probably going to hear me talk about this and rave about this on and on, for the next couple of weeks or so. So I was looking at this, okay? Me and my daughter just finished the series. It was one of my favorite movies, along with, you guys know, Never Ending Story back in the day. But I was looking at, I was going back to the first episode. No, I went back to the movie, okay? Because I wanted to show her, she really liked the series, and so I had to take her back to the movie so we can go ahead and watch that again. And I noticed that when they were when they come into the introduction of the movie, okay, let's see if I have it here. Okay, this is the beginning of the movie. I don't want to get any copyright strikes, and it seems that maybe there is something on Netflix where you can't even screen record while you're on Netflix. It wouldn't let me. It was just black. So that's something new that I just learned. And I see why. Okay. So the best thing I can do for you is just pull up these images. Okay. So immediately when this started out, when I was younger, I didn't know that this would be something that would emulate like the Popistry. But I've always been into looking at these movies about the Queen and all this other stuff and all of these types of things. I've always liked. It's a visual thing, and I just like the costumes and stuff like that. Okay, and I've just always liked older movies, anyways, and older everything. So we're looking at this, and the entry of this movie within the first minutes of the movie is the guys, these skeksis, sitting around the Pope. Not the Pope. Oops, the head, whoever that is about to. I think it was the Emperor. Okay, he was the emperor, and he was about to pass on, and one of these skeksis were going to have to take over his position, and so they were all standing there getting ready to fight over the position to be the emperor, the next emperor. Okay, and there was like a chancellor, or what was I trying to write a little note, chamberlain, or chancellor, or whatever, and there was a general, and all these other guys or whatever. They were standing around waiting for him to die, basically. So immediately that drove me back to, now I wanted to watch the Borgias or whatever. A lot of people think that the image that they've given us of Jesus is basically this guy, Caesar Borgia, and that he is a part of that family. So I started with, I think I watched 2 episodes, maybe 3, of the series a couple years back, okay? But one thing that stood out to me is the fact that in the first minutes of the movie, the introduction, we're looking at this skeksis passing away and all of these creatures, these vultures, sitting around waiting for him to die so they can take his position, which brought me to the fact, excuse me, which brought me to the fact that, I then looked at this image and I said, that's so funny because sometimes I think the Pope has little stuff in front of his hat, but this is the Dark Crystal, but again, it just reminded me of the shape of the Pope's headgear, okay? So then, let's see, it made me go and do anything like added to it. But this is part 2. So as I was saying, we went back to the actual movie and back to the part where the emperor was dying and they were all sitting around waiting to take his place. So that reminded me of how in a lot of these movies I've seen that when the Pope is going to pass away. Now, mind you, for whatever purposes, the people that have made this movie did a making of the movie, and they said that by any means, none of these characters in the movie or their lifestyles are basically based on any real life things, okay? That they're all made up and mythical, and it's not based off of any kind of race or any people or anything in real life. I beg to differ. I think that's like a disclaimer or something. I don't know. So here they are, and then we're gonna go over to. This is the only way that I can do it, y'all, because of the fact of not being able to see it. And I know it's ghetto, but this is what I had to do. So anyways, this reminded me of this, the Borgias, and again, in the first minutes, the opening scene, the introduction of the movie, the same exact thing is happening. And this is the poison chalice is what it's called. So I guess somebody poisoned him, and then this guy is bullying or bribing his way to becoming a new pope. Now, I noticed that that's the same thing that was happening in this scene. And a couple of things that stood out to me is the emperor was saying, you know, you will all, I know that when I leave here, you all are going to be fighting like dogs for the seat, you know. Which one of you are going to be able to clean up this house? Because we have turned to disgusting ways and greed and all these other things. And I want to know who's going to want to take over so that they can clean up the house. Okay, so when that's said, there's two guys that are basically trying to fight over it, and the same exact thing happened in the Dark Crystal when they were standing there all around the same way. One of the chancellor and the general, maybe from the movie, were standing there, and they were kind of looking at each other like, I'm going to say it, you're going to say it, and one of them said it first, and then they had to fight a duel with a rock or some kind of thing with their swords to see who would actually take it. But in the Borgia movie, you know, he said we once were good, but now it's corrupt, you know, and basically who can clean it up. And then one of the guys, excuse me, like the chancellor or whatever his name is, or counselor, says, it's going to be clean. I'm the one, I'm your God, basically. I'll be the one to do it. I swear before the living God. So if he's swearing before the living God, then I'm just trying to figure out who is the living God. Is it the Pope? But in this case, in this movie, the Emperor, I can't tell. Because I know that in this movie, I don't know if it's the general or I think it's it's either the general or the other guy. Can't remember. That is basically played by the same guy that did the. Now I heard his voice and I said I need to know who that is because I hear his voice and look at his hair and he just reminded me of somebody. And I went and looked back and it was the guy from Marco Polo that played the Khan. Okay, and that's actually the same actor that they used to depict the skeksis. That was, I believe, he was the general. So anyhow, I thought that was pretty weird. And then one of the guys stepped up and said, "You dare do something to a white Moor?" And I was thinking, what is that? So now I'm going to have to go ahead and look more into what they're talking about. And I wonder if that has something to do with the White Princess, that other series that is on some station, I don't know. And then it says the Mother Church will be restored, which also reminds me of the whore of Babylon, or when the scripture says, "Come out of her, my people." That's just my take on it. You might have your own. I just was looking into that and saw that. And then I noticed that also, again, they always do have some kind of staff, and sometimes it has something in there. And again, this kind of symbol is all over the movie, the Dark Crystal. And then it has, one of the guys has the staff in it. And in the Dark Crystal, when the emperor was passing away, somebody tried to come up and touch something of his, and he kind of like snatched it back and said, "I'm still the emperor." And then a couple seconds later, he died. And I think it was his staff that he was holding in the movie. And then I was just thinking that we're in almost 20. Why in any name would this person even really still be walking? Just like the guy made me think and question it. Why would he be still walking around with this stick with a with a staff? You know, like, why would he still be doing that? I mean, if you forget everything, take your feelings out of it and forget everything that you've been told, and basically just say, what is the deal? Okay? So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that to you guys, and how he does usually have a staff. Sometimes, and then on the staff, if you look at some of these closely, there's some weird stuff that's usually on these things. If you go ahead and just look at them, you can probably pull them up and look at them per pope, per year, per whatever. And I just thought that that was pretty, because I'm telling you that this movie here is speaking mad truth. And it's not even that you have to study or research. You just have to be in a certain mindset. And when you see it, you'll be able to look at it at the time. Okay, see, because movies are not enjoyable. I used to be a movie lover, but they're not enjoyable like that to me anymore. If I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, it has to already have been piquing my interest, as of it has another hidden meaning. So when I'm watching a movie, I can kind of see the enjoyable part, but the whole time I'm listening, I'm watching, I'm looking at the things that are in the background. I want to hear what they have to say. What does this remind me of? What are they really talking about? I can't just sit there and just let my mind go and just enjoy a movie anymore. It's just impossible. Same way when I'm reading the Bible, I'm usually reading the scripture, and then there's already something that is residing within me that is steering me and saying, that's not what we're talking about. Dig deeper. So, like I said, these videos and stuff like this is not for everyone. This is just for those who are already in a position where they are seeing something, or they are looking further and looking at an alternative way of looking at the scriptures and more. So, if you've seen this movie and you don't think that this storyline could be really talking about people in real life, I know they try to deflect, okay, or deflect the fact that this could be talking about real life stuff by saying it in the thing, but I just don't take the first thing where people say, if my mind is telling me something else, I have to go and investigate. So I think that that's just a way that they try to get rid. So people say, look, I saw this thing and they said that it doesn't mean anything. Well, it doesn't matter what they said. Is what is going to resonate with me and how I'm going to interpret it. That's going to affect me and mine in my life. So I just wanted to bring attention to this awareness to this movie, because it really is deep. And if you're able to see things on that level, then you should probably watch it. So that was the part 1 of that. I mean, this is the part 2, because I couldn't find the images or whatever earlier, and I had to go back around to do it in a ridiculous way. But yeah, go ahead, watch the first 3 minutes or 5 minutes of, well, no, because as soon as this happens in the Borgia show, it gets kind of explicit, or there's nudity immediately following this scene. So I would just be careful and tread lightly when you are watching it. And then, again, watch the first 3 minutes of the other, of season 1, the first episode of The Borgias. And you guys will kind of be able to see what I'm trying to say. So, okay. I just want to thank you guys for stopping by, and I will definitely see you guys soon. Take care.